current.
I think we made it. I think we're live. We got to bring Romp on soon. Because everybody hates Korkmaz. Except for Romp. Yeah. Run It Back Nation. What is good? It is your boy DJ Swood, Run It Back Philly. No frauds, no fanboys, no intros. We're here with the one and the only Philly Take with RB. I guess you're a guest on my show now. I guess that's what we did. Shout out to everybody in here. We had some technical difficulties. We figured it out. A lot of moving parts going on. And now my mic's hitting red, which means it's blasting. Somebody give me a producer. I'm ready, man. I think we're almost at the point, man, where we hire the guy that knows how to do all this stuff, and then we don't have to do it. You know what I mean? All right. Run It Back Nation, what is good? Listen, before we get into this, well, we're going to talk about a lot of things. Look, we're going to talk about the Sixers and what went down today, what went down this morning. Some news dropped that was interesting that I think a lot of people saw coming, but reading the internet all day, I realized how blindsided some people were and how outraged a lot of people are by the decisions that the Philadelphia 76ers front office made today. Before we get into that, that is brought to you by FanDuel. I got a crazy promo for you guys using the link in the description. If you bet $5 right now on FanDuel on anything, you get $150 in free bets and 3 months of NBA League Pass. You bet $5 on FanDuel using the link in the description. You get $150 in free bets to play with, and you get 3 free months of NBA League Pass. That's a no-brainer. Click the link in the description. Tell them I sent you. What's up, RB? So let's just start with this. How do you feel? Oh, everybody hit the like button, man. That's important too. I forget to say that sometimes. You ever forget to say that and then you realize you got less likes? Like I gotta actually tell people. No, you gotta remind people. Everybody hit the like button. All right, so just I want to get your initial reactions to Isaiah Joe and Charles Bassey being released by the Philadelphia 76ers today. And then I'm going to give you my opinion on it. So what's up? How you been? Haven't talked to you for a minute on here at least.
Yeah, man, it's good to be on the show. First off, drop a mic check in the chat. Like you said, hit that like button. I mean, the technical difficulties that we went through. I mean, we were weathering the storm to even get this thing up. It was crazy, man. Happy to be on the show, man. Thanks for having me on. One of the best doing it. Excited to be here, man. Excited to chop it up as always. Now, terms of the Sixers, man. Isaiah Joe, Charles Bassey. I've been pissed off all day. I'm going to be honest with you. All right. The Sixers have a good roster. Okay. I'm ready. I'm full force 5 days away. Sixers, Celtics coming in. We're ready to rock. But I cannot get past the fact that the Sixers let go of Isaiah Joe. In my opinion, given the sample size, given the time that he has spent on the floor, he has, made the most of his opportunity. He showed me that he can be a guy to knock down shots. He averaged 1.5 steals a game in college. I think he has upside on the defensive side as well. People seem to not think that. I know he's a little bit weak. He's a little bit slim, but his body looked a lot stronger, at least in the couple preseason games we saw him. He comes in, he hits a step back, creating separation, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Isaiah Joe is better than Furkan Korkmaz. I know you're just talking about Furkan. To me, he's more productive than Shake, or he can be, and he's more productive than Jaden Springer. That's why I'm mostly mad about this. I feel that we have a situation here where the Sixers are trying to defend their first-round picks instead of letting the guys with more upside and more talent go, and I'm frustrated about it. Now, at the end of the day, is this going to make a difference this season? No. But look at what some of these teams have done, right, with these young guys. It's frustrating, man. It's like, look at the Celtics last year. Look how many of those guys were young pieces in their first, second, third year to help that team. Charles Bassey's another one. I just didn't think we had room for Charles Bassey. He's a nice raw talent, just didn't have the space. But Isaiah Joe, I'm frustrated with it. He makes more sense than some of the other guys you still have on this roster. Now you have 14. Now what's the plan? Is there a trade incoming? If there is, I'll be satisfied. But I don't know. It's hard to let this one go.
Yeah, I guess if there was a trade incoming, it would kind of make sense to keep the Korkmaz's $5 million this year on the books if there's a trade incoming and you want to use it to match salaries or anything like that. So if that's the reason and they end up pulling off a trade, then it makes sense. My thing with Isaiah Joe is I see the talent. I see what he has. The time that he got on the floor against real NBA talent, and I'm not saying he deserves a spot over Furkan Korkmaz by any means. That's another topic, and that confuses me also. Don't know how this dude keeps getting away with this. He's been on this team for like 10 years, it feels like, doing absolutely nothing. But anyway, I see Isaiah Joe. I see the talent. I see what he's working on, even just in the small run that he got in the preseason. Yeah, I saw a big-time step-back three where he created a ton of separation. His jumper looks good. His handles were always kind of there. He was one of the most NBA-ready players coming out of the draft, at least as far as draft ratings and profiles go. But the time that he got against real NBA competition, he didn't show me much, and it started to look to me like his being undersized is going to affect him in the NBA. Now, that might be me looking at it and trying to picture Isaiah Joe in like a meaningful role. So I guess that might be me kind of overstating his weaknesses based on where you would expect him to even play in the NBA. So as far as a deep bench guy, yeah, I agree. I don't think there's any. I think Isaiah Joe deserves a spot. I think He can be a deep bench guy. He's not a guy that anybody should be relying on, but coming off the bench 5 minutes a game in a pinch, maybe he provides a spark. Maybe he hits a big three when you're on a scoring drought, things like that. I just don't get it. I guess, like, do you think this is Doc Rivers slowly gaining control over the Sixers front office, which terrifies the living hell out of me? Danny Ainge got out of Boston. Brad Stevens took over as the GM. I just thought of this right now, actually. I didn't even prepare this question. That just came to my mind right now. If Doc Rivers has a plan to be like a president of basketball operations or something, and this is his first step, then I'm terrified. What do you think?
I think it's always been a combination of Doc and Daryl. When it comes to Doc Rivers, though, I think he influences what Daryl does, right? Like, we come into Summer League, Charles Bassey supposed to be the guy. If you remember, Daryl Morey sat up there and said, we're not signing anybody. We're going in with Charles Bassey. Fast forward a couple months later, Bassey looked a little bit underwhelming in Summer League. Trez becomes available, and instantly, I'm sure Daryl Morey did his due diligence, but Doc Rivers instantly said, that's a guy I want on my team. That's a guy I've had before. And, he loves them. He loves those vets, and he loves the Clippers of 2018. So Doc said, go get me Montrezl Harrell. Daryl said, okay, I will. And I love the Trez signing. I thought it worked out very well, and I think it will. But with some of these other guys, you bring up a great point. It's like, why the heck were we not playing them? If you're going to cut Charles Bassey, maybe you could at least try to up his value a little bit, or Isaiah Joe, right? Like, play him in the preseason. Who cares? Now we have Joel Embiid out there in the third quarter trying to dunk over two guys, with the risk of getting injured. Like, I just don't understand it. I think Isaiah Joe, in the opportunities that he has at least showed potential. There's been a couple stretches where it's like, all right, this guy at least has something to offer. He's a former second-round pick. Meanwhile, Jaden Springer is going to absolutely contribute nothing to this team. He is not going to play this year. I never will understand the pick. It's like, why have we kept him? And at the same time, like, we just let Isaiah Joe go for nothing, right? We let these guys go, and I just don't. I understand it from the financial aspect, and to me, it seems like, all right, Daryl Morey's trying to position himself ready to make a move if we need to make one. But the funniest thing I've heard today is, oh, well, you have $5.5 million of wiggle room, and then you have Furkan's contract as like a play there. Furkan's not going to be worth anything because he's not going to play. So what kind of value are you attaching to that? That's what I don't understand. And that's why, to me, it's just like, you let go of a young prospect who could have developed. Maybe not this year, but, he showed something.
Also, as a throw-in trade piece, I think Isaiah Joe has more trade value than Furkan Korkmaz as far as, like, as a player. Like, not looking at the contracts at all, just as a player. If you were another GM and you were looking at, okay, they want to give me either Furkan Korkmaz or Isaiah Joe, I'm going to take the guy that's younger and I haven't seen much of, but has these intangibles and things like that, versus the guy that's been given, I feel like, 5 years of an opportunity and hasn't done much of anything with it. I don't know. I don't know how Furkan Korkmaz is still here. Wasn't Furkan Korkmaz part of the Trey Burke and James Ennis getting cut for Raul Neto? Was Furkan Korkmaz on that team?
Yeah, he was on that team. He's been on this team. And I'll tell you why. It goes back to what I said. He's a first-round pick. This team is just unwilling, just like Howie Roseman was, for example, with the Eagles, to, like, just swallow the pride. Like, look at Matisse Thybulle. Like, what's his role going to be? I'm sure we'll talk about that. Like, these first-round picks, we have to look at them objectively and just say they're a player. Either they're going to fit or they're not. I just see more upside with Isaiah than I did with any of these players. I remember a stretch where he actually got hot last year. Then Doc Rivers came back from being sick, and Isaiah didn't see the floor for a month. And then he was done. He was cold.
I talked about it yesterday. It was Dan Burke for 4 games, and that was Charles Bassey had the game against Jokic where he had 12 rebounds and 5 blocks. Yeah. And Isaiah Joe had an 18-point game and an 11-point game the very next night. He had 29 points in 2 games off the bench. And then, Doc came back and you never saw him again. There's no way that's a coincidence.
Nope, not at all. No, it's frustrating, man. Like I said, I'm all about giving the best guy a shot to play. I know a lot of our fan base overhypes people, right? Isaiah Joe's not a superstar or anything, but he's a good player. He's a guy that at least has the tools to get better, right? What's one thing we can look at with Isaiah that we can't really look at with a lot of these dudes? The guy has a nice freaking jump shot. All right. When he puts it up, it at least looks like it's going in. It's something you can build on, given more time and experience. But with Jaden Springer, we don't even know where his offensive game is at. This is year 2. What's going on with Jaden? How about Shake Milton, who we thought at one time when he torched Doc Rivers was going to be maybe a star, right? Or maybe not a star, but like a really good player. Doc Rivers fell in love with him. Now Shake Milton will not be aggressive on the court. It's just frustrating to me that we have these guys that we're just holding on to that just they keep finding a way onto the roster, and somehow they're going to find minutes. And I just don't get it.
Yeah, so there's legitimately 2 guys right now on the roster that we don't know has a role. Like, I guess outside of Korkmaz, Matisse Thybulle's just such a major question mark, and he had a good game 2 games ago, hit 3 threes after airballing one and hitting one off the side of the rim that was like 90% an airball, and then he hit 3 in a row, and everyone went crazy about that. And the very next game, he didn't play in until the fourth quarter garbage time of a preseason game. So that also raises a red flag to me. Like, is Matisse Thybulle going to get any time on this team? Because when you think about the whole roster and the starting lineup and who should be coming off the bench, like most of the summer, I forgot to even mention Matisse Thybulle in all of our Sixers talk because I just kind of forgot he was there. I felt like he was definitely going to be traded this summer. I think he has trade value. I don't see really the role that he has on this team with this roster right now. I don't see where he fits in, especially with his shooting, I guess, lack of confidence shooting the ball. Like, when you swing it to him, he has to shoot it. He had confidence in that one preseason game, and then he didn't play until the fourth quarter. The next one is tough. And somebody in the chat said Jaden Springer is still young. And
okay. I mean, Daryl Morey said something that stood out to me. I think it was at the media day press conference. He said, we have to kind of move away a little bit. He didn't say this directly, but he alluded to this. He said, we need to get something more than one-way players. That's all we've been fixated on is one-way, one-dimensional players. And Thybulle's a perfect example. It's a guy we loved. It's a guy we raved about. He saw what happened with a guy like Ben Simmons, and yet here we are questioning whether his jump shot's going to be even ready to go. And they talked him up all off season. They said he was the hardest worker. They said he put in the most work. But now after a couple preseason games, I'm like, I don't know. It still kind of looks the same to me, and that's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I could go like try my best to dunk a basketball all summer. That doesn't mean I can do it. It doesn't, just because I tried every day doesn't mean I can. Doesn't mean I get putting in the work and the results show, but some players are just they're not shooters. It's tough, man. And especially speaking of Jaden Springer, not only is Jaden Springer, I know we're kind of hopping all over the place here, but whatever. Not only is Jaden Springer not a shooter, Jaden Springer has no offensive game whatsoever. Like none. And he was drafted on defensive ability, and that's a problem that we've had is drafting players in a game that is offensively driven. Having defense is great. Having a defender on your team is great. He still has to be able to catch the ball in the corner and shoot a 3. Guys that can play defense and can't actually play basketball, they were made for 1994. That doesn't work anymore. And Matisse Thybulle is still trying to show people that he can be a 3 and D player. We got rid of the one player that was 0 and D. And Matisse Thybulle is still looking like 0 and D. And then you got Jaden Springer on the bench that also looks like 0 and D. I don't know too many NBA teams that have this many defenders that can't play basketball. So I don't know what it is. Yeah, maybe it's Daryl Morey holding on to players because he can sell them here. He feels like he can sell them on this is a former first round pick. There's always that. There's always holding on to that. You know what I mean? This is because a lot of teams. Nick, what was his name, man? Nick Stauskas is one that comes to mind when I think of players that are sold on their draft position. That dude was terrible from day one, and he got traded like 3 different times, and it was always former number 9 overall pick Nick Stauskas. Who cares, bro? The guy's not good. So maybe that's it. I don't know. Do you think that's it? You think that's what Daryl's like holding on to? Like I can trade him as a former first-round pick, so I can't let go?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Like in terms of Thybulle, he still has talent. He can still be a productive player, but only in like specific situations, only when you need a spark on defense to maybe, put a stop to a lethal scorer who has 15 early in a game. Other than that, he can't keep himself on the floor, especially come playoff time. Like we saw it last year, guys were running away from Matisse Thybulle. That's not good. And, it's funny, like when you ask people about, from other teams or other fan bases, they go, oh my gosh, Matisse Thybulle is a defensive specialist and he can play so, he can be such a ball stopper and like, he's just great. Yet us Sixers fans who watch him day in and day out, we look at him and we go, the guy's not improving his jump shot. It's frustrating. So I definitely think you can sell some of that hype, but really what it goes back to is just, again, they have that stock and you don't want to give up per se on your first round picks when in reality, maybe we should be talking about drafting better. Look at some of these guys that go late in the first round, early in the second round, where are these guys? And to me, that draft with Maxie, Isaiah Joe, and Bassey, those were 3 quality players that I looked at and I said, all right, these dudes may be able to turn into something. Here we are. Everybody was just raving about Charles Bassey about 5 months ago. Yep. He's gone. People were raving about Isaiah Joe a little bit. He's gone. And I think it's the initiative of the team. Like Daryl Morey's looking at this squad like we're trying to win a championship now, which is why I'm happy he got Daniel House, which is why I'm happy he got DeAnthony Melton, PJ Tucker, guys who are more ready now. And I mean, we're going to wait and see what happens with other guys like Furkan, Shake, and Springer and guys like that. But they can't play. They can't play on this team if you're trying to go all in. Like you have to fully commit to it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, definitely part of me is annoyed that we released players that I think had potential. But I guess I'm at the point now where I'm like, well, we have Doc Rivers anyway. So we knew Doc Rivers wasn't going to come out this season and say, all right, Isaiah Joe minutes. And he wasn't playing Bassey in the preseason at all. I mean, DNP coach's decision in 2 preseason games, I'm like, why didn't you just release him before that? Why would you even make him show up and be like, oh, by the way, you're not getting in the preseason game that literally everybody gets to play in, and then he releases him? Or maybe they agreed on a release before that and it was just announced today or something like that. But yeah, I guess like part of me is still like, they built this team. I feel like they built this team this offseason like with Doc Rivers in mind, the way that he coaches. Like, he's not going to play a young guy that's developing. He's never been a development type of coach. He's a hard-headed old man who's like, you have to bring the talent to me. I'm not going to teach you anything or develop you whatsoever. He's always been like that. So at the same time, I'm like, they weren't going to play anyway. I kind of saw it coming. But then for it to actually happen, I'm like, damn, man, that really happened. We'll move on to Charles Bassey in a second. Mr. Rudy Poo, thanks for the super chat, my man. I appreciate you. Way too many finesse and so-called crafty guys like Shake and Furkan on this team. I believe Daryl is betting on wave candidates for the last spot. Crafty, I guess, is Furkan considered crafty?
I mean, maybe to the Euro public, but I mean, I know what he is at this point. He's going to give you a couple hot games and then he's going to give you a stretch of nothing. And it's kind of just dead weight at this point. And Furkan was a former first round pick. Like they're trying to get something out of it, but it's just not there, in my opinion.
Yeah. So everybody that he signed this offseason and all that we did with the roster, should we fear that we're going to see Furkan Korkmaz? Is there any reason for him to get on the floor? Like, I think we have guards coming off the bench as far as Melton and Milton and Daniel House, a wing-ish type of player. Like, I don't feel like we should see Furkan Korkmaz at all. Do you?
No, you're right. We should not. We definitely should not. But I still fear that we will. Like, this is the most polished Sixers team that I've seen in a long time, especially coming into a season. Maybe the most polished with Joel and Embiid so far. But I still have this fear that on a random Wednesday, Furkan's just going to come in at the second substitution and he's going to play well because that's what he does when he comes in for the first time in a long time. and Doc's just going to ride with the hot hand, I guess, even if he goes cold. And like, I don't think we can have that inconsistency with the rotation.
Yeah, I think Doc gets jaded by certain players. Like Shake Milton dropped 39 on him when he was in LA. So then to him, Shake Milton was a great, amazing, up and coming player ever since that happened to him. And Furkan Korkmaz, I think last year or the year before maybe had that game winning shot against the Portland Trail Blazers from the corner. And then Doc Rivers is like, oh, he's amazing. So now I have to play him. And then when he starts, shooting 17% from three for an entire month, Doc still refuses to pull him out because that's just Doc Rivers. He's always going to be like, this is right. I'm right. Everyone else is wrong. And he's never going to admit his own fault. So
yeah,
I guess that just is what it is. And we have to just look at this roster and say the roster was built to win. Doc was never going to develop these guys anyway. It would be funny, though, if they go somewhere else and, a young, ambitious, open-minded coach develops them into something. Charles Bassey, this one I really don't understand because coming out of the draft, the dude is 6'10", 260. I mean, he's a big body. He's an NBA body right out of the gate. He's never even really needed to develop that much. He's always had game around the rim. He has post moves. He has a mid-range jumper. He has shot blocking ability. I don't understand the Charles Bassey one. Like, if you can't develop Charles Bassey into an NBA role player, then I don't think you can develop anybody into anything. Because I think that was just by looking at what he looked like coming out of the draft, that was probably the easiest player to turn into a backup center because he was already one coming straight out. I mean, he was dropping 40 points and catching one-handed lobs over people in the G League, and you're telling me he can't even get on the floor in the NBA? And then Dan Burke comes in for 2 games, and suddenly here he is. So, yeah, it's looking like a lot of Doc Rivers to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the raw talent was there. What I think happened with Bassey is, again, they wanted to keep him. There just wasn't enough room. And that really is based upon what you think of Paul Reed. There's a lot of differing opinions on that guy, but we know Trez is going to be the backup center. Like, we're trying to win now. Trez is the more experienced player, and we've seen that through a couple games of preseason. I would actually not be surprised if Bassey doesn't get picked up, on the waiver wire or whatever, and he finds his way back to the Blue Coats. For some reason, I feel, though, that Isaiah Joe is going to get swooped up. I mean, Trevelyan Queen got picked up. So I just see Isaiah Joe going somewhere else, being developed. Maybe Bassey does too. There are teams out there that could use a backup center. And honestly, I could see either one torching the Sixers on a random game. Like, I just see the talent with those guys. And you look at how the league is trending now, you need to draft well and develop your guys in the first couple of years. And we have some of these guys here. It just doesn't make sense why, if we're talking about Furkan not even playing, right? Why not go and try to keep another guy who can develop, who may have a higher ceiling than a guy like Furkan Korkmaz? And one thing I will add is I thought it was interesting that we cut it down to 14 people, because now we're one below the roster, the 15-man roster. So are we going to go into the season with 14 players? Is Daryl Morey trying to set up a trade? I think it poses an interesting question. I don't think he would just get rid of these guys, with just the idea to create space for later on in the season. Just my take, though.
Yeah, you're right. Why would you cut it down to 14 right now? There has to be a plan. Somebody, I think it was Mr. Rudy put at the end of that super chat comment that said he thinks Daryl's waiting for a candidate to fill the 15th spot. Yeah, I don't know. Do you pull off a trade this late in the off season, like 5 days before the season starts? And I mean, I don't know. That's interesting to me. I don't even know what else to say. It just boggles my mind that you couldn't turn Charles Bassey into a rotational backup center. But yeah, you're right. It ended up there was no room for him here. Speaking of Doc Rivers and hating players, though, like, do we think we're gonna see? Because this is an interesting thing to me when thinking about this roster now, the backup center position, Doc Rivers, the short history that he's had here, how he's handled the backup center position recently, last season was not good most of the season with how he handled it, what players he chose to play versus what players most people thought should have been on the floor. The whole city of Philadelphia, the media, he's arguing with the media every night. I'm right, you're wrong. And then he ends up being wrong, and then he's angry that Paul Reed has a good game, and he goes on the Paul Reed victory tour rant and things like that. Are we finally going to see like a heavy dose of Paul Reed this season? Like, did Doc Rivers actually become convinced that Paul Reed is a solid rotational backup center and he should use him? Or is Doc Rivers going to fall in love with Montrezl Harrell again, who I love, by the way, but he's not a good defender, especially against bigger centers. And in LA, he was playing a lot of center. He was borderline the starting center, which was what the major problem with that team was. So he's only going to be the backup center. I don't think he can get on the floor enough maybe for Doc Rivers' love for him to shoot us in the foot. But what do you think about Doc Rivers, Paul Reed, Montrezl Harrell? Are we actually going to see Paul Reed I would like to see Montrezl and Paul Reed in an even kind of rotational backup center thing.
Yeah. No, I was actually thinking before about them playing together too, which would be interesting. Again, I think it all goes on your idea of Paul Reed and what you expect him to be. I'm going to be honest, based on that last preseason game we just saw, I feel like Doc was trying to roll out his potential lineups, both his first and second unit. I think Sixers fans are going to be upset. I don't think Paul Reed's going to play much at all. I think it's going to be Montrezl Harrell getting the majority of the backup minutes. I think Paul Reed will come in different situations, maybe against like certain teams. Maybe you have more of a dynamic center that he's going up against, or maybe you need some rebounds. Your team's looking lackluster right now. I don't really think Paul Reed's going to play much at all to start the season. And honestly, maybe Sixers fans won't like this. I don't know if I'm too mad at it. Now, Paul Reed has had an incredible offseason. He's had a great preseason. He looks hungry. He goes out there. He plays defense. He hawks in boards. I still can't get past the offensive game, though. Like, what is he going to be offensively? Will he give us anything? If he can just give us a little bit of what Trez can give us, I'm all for going with Paul Reed, the young athleticism. But I still don't know what is there because I saw his jump shot the other day in warm-ups, and doesn't look different to me. So I don't know if I'm mad at it or indifferent or what at this point.
Yeah, he's never had an offensive game. Another one of those players that people convince themselves all the time that he can develop an offensive game. He said he's going to shoot 45% from three this year, and then even he laughed when he said that in the press conference. Trez is Paul Reed with an offensive game. That's what I see from Montrez. Now, I guess you could say Paul Reed's a better defender, but I don't know if that's even necessarily true. Maybe a stronger defender, but he shoulders people. He fouls a lot. Montrez fouls a lot. Yeah, Trez and Reed together, Calvin Cambridge says, puts the other team in the bonus immediately. There would be like 7 fouls in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I see from Montrez if we're comparing it to Paul Reed, is that Montrez is the Paul Reed type of player, high energy guy, just a hustler, a dog, a guy that's never going to give up, a guy that's going to scrap, collect the loose ball, dive on the floor, you know what I mean? The garbage collector, plays that are dead. He's going to somehow end up with the ball in his hands, kicking it back out. But he has an offensive game, and he gets the ball under the rim, and he knows how to use his body. He knows how to control his body. He knows how to get positioning in the post. Just last night, he got blocked at the rim, got the shot back, and went right back up and finished it, and then started smacking himself in the face. Like, I love that guy. And I think Philly's going to love that guy. But he definitely he's the epitome of a player that if you're not going to shoot an outside shot or you can't shoot an outside shot, then this is how you have to be able to play. Because he averaged 16 points per game for his career with no jump shot whatsoever. And that's he's just a dog. But yeah, I agree. Paul Reed has never really had an offensive game, and it doesn't look like he's developing one at all. He gets the ball in his hands, and it just kind of looks like he doesn't know what to do with it. Yeah,
and I don't think that's a guy who you can put out there as your first backup center on a championship team right now. I mean, we talk about our fan base overrating players. Yeah, I'll be honest. Maybe I do overrate Isaiah Joe a little bit. But you want to talk about people overrating Paul Reed, like he's not ready to be a backup center to Joel Embiid on a championship team. I think Montrezl Harrell can at least do somewhat of what you need. And that's the thing. You don't need much. But look at what guys like Andre Drummond did. They just came in and held their own for a little bit. Trez can come in, and if he can't hold his own defensively, he can come out here and give you 3 buckets right away. Or like you said, he can go hawk a rebound and get in someone's face and just kind of set some big bodies and make the other guys better. And just having that experience, we can't get our backup center into foul trouble. We saw that with Dwight. We saw that with Drummond sometimes. We need a smart player. You know what the best stat yesterday was for Montrezl Harrell? He had no fouls in 16 minutes. That was my favorite thing about his game. He's tough, he's strong, but he doesn't foul, and I like that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, people were already complaining about Doc Rivers lineups on Twitter in the middle of the preseason. So, we had 4 months off. We forgot how insane this guy is. And we're all really excited to watch the season and really all excited. But I definitely think people are going to get if anybody forgot how insane and unpredictable Doc Rivers is, you will be reminded. It's still Doc Rivers. He's going to do things with the lineup that we're all going to be on Twitter like, what the hell is this lineup out here? Please get it off the floor. It's going to happen. You have to outlast Doc Rivers. That's what you have to do. You have to have good enough players to survive Doc Rivers coaching. It just is what it is, and I really think that's what Daryl Morey tried to do this offseason, which, I don't know.
I agree. What did you think of the small ball lineup? Maybe that could be another possibility to kind of plug in there at times as well. I thought it was good for at least a sample size. Obviously, you can't play it the whole first half, but
was that when he had Trez and Niang out there together?
No, he had Tucker at the 5. Not yesterday, but the third game.
I think he's definitely going to play Tucker at the 5. I think he knows that if you want a small ball 5, that's a really, really good small ball 5. I mean, if you had him 5 years ago, that's an even better small ball 5. But he still plays like he does not play like a 37-year-old NBA player. Just last year, there's clips of him defending Giannis, like legitimately blocking him out of the post and making him pass the ball. So I love PJ, and I think he can play small ball 5 against a lot of players. And I think Doc's definitely going to use him at the small ball 5. And him being 37 years old puts him even higher on Doc Rivers, chopping block, or the opposite of a chopping block, puts him higher on his list of players that he wants to put out there. If you had somebody that was 40 and really good, he'd probably be starting over everyone.
He's going to be so good on his team.
Yeah, he is. It's just what they've added. The main thing they lacked last year was it was just a soft team. And part of it was the softest player of all time, still being on the roster. It was just that soft energy was in the building. So he's gone, and then you bring in Trez, PJ, even Daniel House is a hustle guy that dives on the floor and can finish strong through contact, and DeAnthony Melton. I mean, those are 4 guys you added that are all like the opposite of the problem we had last season with the role players on this team. So I'm excited for all of them.
Little bit of a hot take here. I would love to know what you think. I actually was just coming up with this earlier today. Based on what I've seen, now it's a very small dose of Daniel House. This guy looks better than I thought. Yep. All right, he's out here knocking down shots. Maybe it's the reversal of the 2-5 curse, okay? But he's out here hitting shots. He's like flinging bow and arrows to the stands. He's great in transition. He's a great athletic wing in transition. My hot take is this guy might end up taking Matisse Thybulle's minutes, and I'm talking about early in the season if he keeps playing like this.
Yeah, I don't think there's – I mean, again, like Matisse's defense is not – it's good. It's great. He's a highlight defender. He's a guy that's going to come in and make it very frustrating for the offense. He's going to get turnovers. He's going to make things happen when you're in a scoring drought, when you need something to happen. He's definitely a guy that's one of the best in the NBA at just deflecting everything left and right and making it tough for other teams. But his lack of offense kind of outweighs that. I would rather have a Daniel House whose defense might not be where Matisse is as far as just sheer athleticism. But his having an offensive game makes up for that. I like more of a balance in today's NBA. You just have to be able to score. You have to be able to shoot the ball when it's in your hands. For so many years, this team has had players that 3-point shooters, and if the 3-pointer's not there, they do not dribble the ball. It's nice to have players that you're not wincing when they put the ball on the floor. So yeah, I think he could take Thybulle's minutes, and especially with Doc again. I think Doc's gonna go to guys that have been around a lot. Daniel House impressed me too. I haven't seen a lot of Daniel House at all. Didn't really watch much of Houston when Harden was there. I guess I watched him here and there, but I didn't watch him close enough to really know anything about Daniel House. I knew that he shot almost 41% at career, and 70% of his 3-pointers came from James Harden.
Yep.
That's an actual stat. So
It was crazy, man. Like when we were running that small ball lineup, I felt like I was watching Houston of 4 years ago. You had Tucker out there at the 5, right? They used to have Covington out there at the 5. You had Tucker. You had House. I mean, I felt like we were running the Rockets offense for a little bit. It was nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. Carlos, thank you for the super chat. Salute, fellas. Hey, do y'all see who do y'all see? My bad. Who do y'all see as being a nice surprise this year for us other than the stars? I see Melton having a big impact for us this year. I guess who I would have to say either Melton or Daniel House, who we were just talking about. I think I've talked a lot about the Anthony Melton just because when we first made the trade, I went and watched a ton of his highlight clips and tried to research as much as I could, and I just think his numbers for a 6'2" guard are off the charts. To average 8 rebounds per 36 minutes at 6'2" just tells you right there that he's an absolute machine. He's a workaholic. He's never going to quit. And I'm pretty sure it was yesterday, he had a drive to the basket. Yeah, it was against the Hornets. He had a drive to the basket against, I talked about it last night, forget the guy's name, easily 7 inches taller than him, and just went right at his chest and finished through contact. And it was like, I don't remember a lot of role players, a lot of guys coming off the bench that are 6'2" that play as strong as he does. So I'm excited. I'm excited for DeAnthony Melton, and I think he's going to be one of the first off the bench to start the season because I think Doc likes him a lot too.
Yeah, I'd probably have to go with the same one. I think Melton, so far, he's been off in terms of his shot, but what I really like is his willingness. And another thing I like is how his defense creates his offense. This is a guy that I've seen pick passing lanes multiple times already in the preseason, but what does he do? He lets it lead to a transition bucket for himself or, for a 2-on-1 or something. Matisse Thybulle can pick a passing lane, but dribbling down the floor, he almost loses control of the ball by the time he gets to the basket. I like how Melton kind of has a stable game, and it seems like even for a young player, he's kind of smarter and more mature. Maybe that's playing behind John Morant and Tyus Jones and with that Grizzlies team. I don't know what it is, but I think he looks more ready for a role like that. And even if it's not falling right now, I like his willingness. He's going to let it fall eventually. He's, like you said, he's not afraid to attack the moment. So I've been impressed with what I've seen from his mentality so far.
Yeah, and I definitely see what Grizzlies fans were saying. They were like, you're not going to like him. He's inconsistent. He whatever. I think people too much expect a bench player to be some kind of NBA superstar. Like, I don't get it. If the guy shot 42% from 3 and averaged 20 points per game, he would not be a bench player. He wouldn't. Like, that's not what a bench player is. Bench players are inconsistent. They are. It's the J.R. Smith type of player. They come in firing. They're either 10 for 10 or they're 0 for 10. It's up to the coach to know, okay, it's not this guy's night. Let's try something else, which, again, back to Doc Rivers, I don't know. Maybe Melton will have games where he's 0 for 8 and Doc just keeps playing him and he keeps chucking bricks, but we'll see. But, yeah, I'm excited for him. Mr. Rudy Poo, thanks, man. I love the team, but one guy doesn't fit, Tobias Harris. I even see him waving off Harden and Maxie to go ISO. He needs to go. Sorry. Tobias said that he checked his own ego this year, which is funny because I remember Romp saying for a long time that Tobias Harris thinks he's the best player on the team, and I just thought Romp hated Tobias. Shout out to Romp. I don't know if he's in here. But he ended up being completely right that Tobias admitted it, which is weird to me. I didn't think he had an ego because I thought he knew. How would you not know? I don't know the guy. I never talked to him, so I don't know. But I just assumed that you would be smart enough to know that Joel Embiid, James Harden, even Tyrese Maxie are probably better options offensively than you are. But he's a $33 million a year player, still the highest paid player on the team. Maybe the contract really went to his head and he thinks he's, a team leading star. But he said he checked his own ego this year. So if he had one, apparently he's really trying to play the role of stretch 4 and just be the fourth option. Basically, your job is to catch and shoot off of James Harden and Tyrese Maxey assists. So,
yeah.
What do you think about Tobias this year?
Yeah, I remember we talked last year, and I thought that early last year when Ben Simmons was out, Tobias was trying to be that guy, and he felt like, I need to be the second option. This was before the emergence of Maxey, and obviously he's not that. And once that trade happened, I do agree. I think Tobias said, all right, well, I mean, what is there for me to do? There's too many ball handlers on the scene. Then you have Joel Embiid who can handle the ball. I need to take a backseat role, and I thought he did well with it down the stretch last year. Going into this year, I know people are already in midseason form of hating Tobias Harris. It's like a normal occurrence at this point. I think Tobias, based on what we've heard this offseason, needs to stick with the plan of just being a shooter, playing off of James and Tyrese, and just trying to get better at other areas like rebounding and defending. If he can do that, he can be productive. He can also create his own, from like 5-7 feet out. But I do agree in some of these preseason games, I haven't been happy with what I'm seeing from him because, he tries to take the ball at the top of the arc and he's dribbling again for 10 seconds. He's a guy for me, one dribble and that's it. If you can create something, fine. If we think about this, he's going to have the third or fourth best defender on him. So he should be able to beat these guys off the dribble sometimes, but he needs to defer and wait for his right opportunities. And I feel based on what I've seen so far, he's trying to get a little too aggressive. Tobias, you got to take that backseat role, man, just like you did last year, especially with what we're seeing from Tyrese right now. And then James, and then obviously Joel. Tobias, you can't have the ball in your hands that much, man. Like, you just need to find a way to fit in. The problem will come, though, if we get early in the season and he's not shooting well, because then what does he do? Where do you put him on the floor? Yep. Do you just stick him in the corner? Do you have him try to cut and rebound? What do you do at that point? So that's going to be a real testament to Tobias and whether he's worked on that shot consistently.
Yeah, because it has to be high 30% to be, a good enough stretch for it to make sense on this roster. And yeah, he has to shoot. I'm pretty sure like last year, most of his career, he hasn't been a high volume 3-point shooter. He shot like 1.5 a game or something like that. He has to shoot 3 or 4 per game and keep up that percentage. And yeah, we'll see, man. If he's not shooting good, then he tries to take the ball and back somebody down for 20 seconds, and it's just not. Yeah, it's not what you want. I mean, we'll see. I don't know what else to say about Tobias Harris. It's another player that I just kind of forget is still here. It's just weird to me.
It's like there's not enough possessions to go around sometimes, and him taking them away from Maxie and Harden is what hurts if he's not scoring the ball. But I want you to think back to, what was it, 2 years ago? Remember when he was so close to making the All-Star team? You remember that Tobias, like I think he was knocking down like 36, 38%. If we could just get that Tobias, that would be perfect for this team. I think, and maybe some nights he needs to go for 18 or 20 if everybody else is cold, but we need that Tobias. And honestly, I don't think this is talked about enough. I don't know if you've noticed this as well. To me, it looks like he's much, much slower than a couple years ago. I don't know if he put on weight or what, but that all-star or close to all-star level of Tobias, remember how he was getting to the rim and just creating a shot? He just looked much different to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but he looks different now.
Was that, I don't know what just happened to my camera. Hold on a second. Was that, let me just switch it over to this. Was that the first year Doc Rivers was here?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm frozen. Man, technology is being great to me today, man. Am I frozen on yours? Yeah, I am.
Yeah, you're frozen to me. It's just been one of those days.
It's been one of those days. All right.
Someone said last year's playoff Tobias was insane. I agree. And that's because he was really embracing that role of just being, that tertiary scorer, or even some nights he was just that guy in the back that could give you a sneaky 20 if you needed it. But also what I noticed last year for Tobias in the playoffs is he was playing much better defense. He was guarding Siakam tight. Like, he was working on other things to try to be a more well-rounded player. When in fact, I think this, last year, what he was criticized on and so far in this preseason is, you can't get too ball dominant. You're not that guy on this team. That's not your role. He's got to pick his spots, smart.
Am I just going to be a black screen now for the rest of the stream?
To me, you keep like popping up and popping off.
Oh my God. Well, we got the stream going for 49 minutes successfully.
I think Tobias hacked your account. He didn't like you talking about him.
Yeah, Tobias heard us talking shit, man. Let me just close this out, open something real quick. Shout out to everybody in here. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for chilling while technology hates me today.
I'll read some of the comments while you try to get that on. Somebody says it's all the crumble cookies. Tobias is the worst starter in the league, but can't lead a bench unit either. I wouldn't say he's the worst starter in the league. I think that's an overstatement.
Worst starter in the league.
I do see you back on now, though. At least on the...
Yeah, that's my virtual cam, but when I plug in my cam link, it should pop up, and it's not popping up.
And I do think Tobias, by the way, is he has embraced that role. I do think he's at least somewhat of a leader on this team. Like, he at least has the smarts about him to step back and be like, okay, this is a team catered around Joel Embiid, maybe Tyrese Maxie this year, and James Harden. So I just need to be that other guy. So I think Toby's going to do his best. It's just, does he have the talent to be a consistent 3-point shooter on a nightly basis, in my opinion? And that's really what it'll come down to. Because if he's not, like I said, if he's shooting 32% from deep after the first 10 games, oh boy, I mean, he's going to hear it. He's going to hear it from this fan base, and he's probably going to tell us to shut up again. But I mean, that's what we need, and we need that defense that we saw in Siakam last year. Like, we need that locked in Tobias on that end.
Yeah, that year that you're talking about where he was almost an all-star, I'm pretty sure that was Doc Rivers' first year here, and we were celebrating. Doc Rivers fixed Tobias Harris because he brought out that LA Clippers Tobias Harris. And that year, I remember he looked quicker and bouncier than he looked in the past. So I think he was in great shape that year. And yeah, I don't know if he's been in that shape since then. It is. Well, we'll see about Tobias Harris. I have no expectations. I actually haven't even really thought about the fit a lot or what he's going to look like or anything like that, man. Really.
Look, the last thing I want to say on Tobias is, again, everybody's going to be on him. He's an easy guy to target. My gripe with Tobias is, as a power forward, is he ever a guy that you can look at in a single game and say, yeah, he's going to definitely give me 9 to 10 rebounds tonight? Like, that's what we should have, and I can't expect that from him. Sometimes we see 2 rebounds. It's like if you're not going to be on the ball a lot, you need to find other ways to contribute. Cut to the basket, like, try to help Joel Embiid out. We need him to contribute in more ways. That's just my take on it, though.
Yeah, he doesn't play. He doesn't play bully ball enough for the power forward position. He's very finesse. He's very drive, euro step, floater, fadeaway type of player, and that's why he doesn't get a lot of rebounds, because it's not his mindset. He's not like crash the boards, knock this guy out of the way, get physical. That's not in his. And when he reminds himself and talks himself into it, that's when he gives you 11 rebounds.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always happen. And sometimes, he plays the whole game and he has 2, and it's like, what the hell? Before we get up out of here, I guess just general impressions on, because I don't really think I've asked you yet what you think in general about what James Harden looked like in the preseason. And did what he looked like in the preseason give you like any outlook on what you think he's going to look like this season? I know the whole offseason hyping up the slim Harden, in shape. We're going to get Houston Harden. He's going to be unguardable, and it's going to be, him and Embiid unstoppable. Just what do you think of James Harden, what you've seen so far?
Yeah, so in terms of my expectations for James, I've been preaching this all along. We need an efficient James, and I don't think that's going to look the same on every single night. However, I will say my interpretation has changed a little bit based on what I'm seeing from Tyrese Maxie. Like, right now, Maxie looks like the guy who's ready to be the second option on this team. So it really depends on what you view as an efficient version of James Harden. I will say, though, I think he has looked a little more bouncy in the first couple games. Then again, he's had a game where he didn't look too good. Of course, the Harden haters, the box score warriors, are just having the time of their life because, they say he goes 5 for 12. And it's like, okay, but did you actually watch the game? He was beating guys off the dribble. Then he has 2 crashing on him. So is it really fair to say, oh, James Harden missed X amount of shots? No, we just need to look at him, the player. Mm-hmm. To me, he does look to be in a better shape than he was last year. The question is, can he keep that up? Will he stay healthy over a long period of time? And really what I think is going to be the most intricate thing about this team is, how are they going to run the offense? Mm-hmm. we saw times last year where Maxie had, a huge first half. Then he was nowhere to be found in the second half. Now it's going to be like, are you going to read the room? Are you going to feed the hot hand? Is it going to be a dominant Joel and James scheme? Or do you let Maxie go? Like, that's the most important thing to me. I think James is going to be fine. He'll give you 10 dimes a night if you need him to. He's going to open up these crazy looks. Now you got Tucker standing in the corner. I think he'll be fine. I think people are going to overreact about it, but really it's who's going to run the offense? That's my biggest question.
That is a good question, man. I didn't really think about it like that. Yeah, before I answer that or try to answer that or give you my perspective on that. Yeah, James to me, he looks healthy. He looks very healthy. He looks very in shape. I think he looks lighter than he looked in Brooklyn. I think he looks quicker and bouncier than he looked in Brooklyn. And we keep saying, we just need Brooklyn James Harden. I think he's actually better physically right now than he was in Brooklyn. And even if he's close to as athletic as he was in Houston, he's not going to play that style of game anyway because that's not how the team is set up. So, you're not going to get Houston Harden because Harden's not going to try to give you 37 points on 29 field goal attempts. He's not going to play that style of game. So, but I think him being in shape, just from what I've seen in the preseason, has made his jump shot looks so much better than it looked last season. His 3-point shot looks so much better. He's getting more elevation. He's more straight up and down. He's getting a higher release on it. And when he does that, it's almost automatic when he's open. And that's the James Harden that people knew in the past. Like when he would cross somebody over and the dude falls down and he stares at him for 30 seconds, it feels like. You have to be very confident that this shot is going in if you're going to stare at somebody while they're laying on the ground. You know what I mean? When he was wide open, it was automatic. And he knew it and everybody knew it. And I think that's the James Harden we're going to get this season. He's going to be a knockdown 3-point shooter and a facilitator. And that's all you need on this team. And a facilitator as good as him that's also a knockdown 3-point shooter is still very rare in the NBA. So he's going to be an all-star level player.
Yeah.
I really think that.
And to add on to that, like those are two of the most important things, right? Like he's knocking down threes. The shot form looks good, and he's also knocking down mid-ranges as well. Like he's adding different dimensions to his game. He's not as predictable. And I think, again, having Tyrese Maxie be this good right now, and I think he's going to be a star, having Joel Embiid, who caters so much attention from the defense, it's like a pick and choose type of thing. And I think James is going to be able to exploit some of these matchups because once these teams start putting better defenders on Tyrese Maxie, it's going to have to open somebody up. And I think James, based on what I've seen, yes, he is capable of beating somebody off the dribble and finding a great look. My favorite play of this preseason was that play he made yesterday where he hits that one bouncer and then Tucker kicks it out. Maxie knocks down a 3. Like that was just so smooth, man. And it's just those plays coming from that high level of IQ and experience.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I don't know how to answer really what you said about who's going to run the offense because I don't think Tyrese Maxie is a facilitating point guard. I don't think he's going to run the offense in the sense of setting up a play for others, even though, he can make plays for others on the fly. He's a basketball player. You just saw last night he had a nice drive and like underneath dime to, I think, Montrezl or Paul Reed under the basket. So he can be he's a playmaker just naturally as a basketball player, but I don't think he's going to run plays and really set up others. It just doesn't seem like it's what he naturally does. And Doc in that mic'd up practice was telling him, bring the ball up and call a play for yourself. I think he meant like, you're a scorer and your job is to try to score when you have the basketball. So I think James is going to run the offense, but yeah, it's interesting to see how it's going to work because I want Tyrese Maxie to be a major part of it. I want Tyrese Maxie trying to score the basketball to be a major part of the offense. So, the first quarter of the last game, Harden walked off the floor and looked frustrated. He threw his arms up. He was angry. And that's I think people need to be prepared for some things like that. There's going to be miscommunication. There's going to be growing pains. And especially with the emergence of Tyrese Maxey being this level of scorer that he looks like he is right now, it's even more on James Harden to try to figure out, okay, when do I let Maxey go? When do I go? When do I give the ball to Joel? And that's something, again, James hasn't really had to do his whole career. So I think people need to be prepared for definitely some stretches of not good-looking basketball. We're not going to go 82-0, but I think over the course of the season, they're going to get the chemistry. They're going to figure it out, and they're going to be really, really good. But we should definitely expect some ups and downs, I think.
So if you're Doc Rivers, like coming into any single game, what do you do? Do you come out and quickly establish Joel in the post? Do you come out and let Maxie go for 10 early on and then, go to Joel? Like, that's what I'm really interested to see. Because when you think about good teams, right, they essentially have like maybe two of their top players. Like, for example, the Golden State Warriors, the ball's running through Steph early in the game. He's trying to get hot. He's trying to get going. He's going to dime up Clay. Clay's going to try to knock some down. Maybe Wiggins. What are the Sixers going to do? Because I truly feel, based on what I've seen, Maxie is that good enough to get 8 off quickly and try to shift the defense. But then again, do you run the James and Joel pick and roll right off the bat? Do you let Joe just go to town? I think it's really going to be based on situational matchups. Like, if obviously Joel and Embiid could probably dominate any center in this league, but if they're not paying too much attention to him because of the required attention on Maxie or Harden, I think you really got to just feed whoever's hot that night. And that's what it'll be interesting to see from me in terms of what Doc, tries to get going early in games.
No, I think you're right. I think if I had to guess what's going to happen, it would be what I saw last night, which was right off the bat, Joel Embiid in the post. I mean, he shot the ball in 12 seconds. And, make the defense adapt to that. And then once the defense starts to adapt to that, then you go to your other options. I think last year, too many times, there wasn't other options. There should have been other options, but it seems so many times like it was either Joel Embiid or we didn't have a plan B. People just stood around waiting for Joel to get in the post. We couldn't get him in the post because he was getting triple teamed. Like, you got to run it through Joel, but there has to be other actions and other things that are ready to go. And I think, with Maxie scoring the way he's scoring and James looking like back to himself, not superstar himself, but back to himself a little bit, there's going to be other options. I think you start with Joel, you make the defense, try to stop him. And once they start throwing things at him, then you kill him with James, you kill him with Maxie. Once it's balanced, it's going to be very hard to stop.
I agree. And I think one of the most important things that people don't talk about is letting Maxie have more of this significant role will hopefully take away some of the burden from Joel Embiid. Like, how many times last year did we have to force Joel Embiid to score and score and score in the middle of the season against a subpar team just to pull out a win? Like, that extra tax on the body, it adds up. It adds up over time. And I think that having these different options, even Tobias can be a guy who may be able to go for 20 on a given night. Having these different dudes who can step up and be spark plugs will hopefully try to preserve some of these guys. Maybe our guys can hopefully take off some of these fourth quarters if we're beating these bad teams early on. That's what I'm hoping to see. Because honestly, it all matters how prepared you are when you come to the playoffs. And we haven't been healthy, so we need to be.
Yeah, I just went back through the stats of 3 preseason games where they all 3 played together, Maxie, Joel Embiid, and James Harden. And in 2 of the 3 games, all 3 games, Joel Embiid led the team in field goal attempts. In 2 of the 3 games, Tyrese Maxie had more field goal attempts than James Harden. So as far as scoring and shooting the ball, I think we really might be in for Tyrese Maxie being the second highest field goal attempting player on the team, especially because James is so comfortable being a facilitator. Is so comfortable giving the ball to Maxie and letting him go. So
exactly,
I wouldn't be shocked if Tyrese Maxie, and I mean in 15 minutes he had 21 points in the first Cavs game. Like the next Cavs game, let me just get to it real quick.
He's a star, man. Like, yeah. I don't think people want to hear it again because we've said that about other players because we've been fooled early on. No. There's no, fine line here. Like, Tyrese Maxie is a budding star. Like, he is going to be him. Tyrese Maxie is ready to take that step this year. I don't think I've seen a guy in a long time, just in general, with that much hunger, that personality, that desire, and really the skill. Like PJ Tucker said, Maxie's the fastest guy he's ever seen. You combine that with everything the dude's in the gym at 5 a.m, and he's 21. He's 21 years old. It's crazy to think what Maxie can be.
Yeah, most players don't have a complete package like that. Most players are very good at, like, Ja Morant, very athletic, fast, ball handler, can knife through the defense, but he's always struggled with his perimeter shot. Um, you rarely get players that are this good on all three levels of scoring. And Tyrese Maxey at this age, it's like he's putting it all together so young. Then there's nowhere to go but to keep going up. And if he gets better than he is right now, that's a multiple. That's a 5 or plus time All-Star. That's a very, very good, career that he could have. He could be, and he could keep getting better. That's the crazy part. He could actually be an NBA superstar in a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the now and the future, which is crazy to think about. And it's very interesting because last year we raved about Maxey, being the third best 3-point shooter in the league. You know what's weird? I still didn't feel as automatic as I did about his shot now. When Tyrese Maxey puts up a 3, I'm like, all right, that's going in. It's like, it just looks so clean, and the league should be terrified of what Maxey can become given his drive. That's one thing we couldn't say about the other guy who we prematurely said is going to be a star. Now this kid has drive. He wants it. I love it, man.
Yeah. Speaking of the other guy, you couldn't write a better story of the player that legitimately gets playing time because he quit and refused to come back, ends up being the exact opposite of what he is, which is a hard worker, a guy that knows what his flaws are, can look himself in the mirror, goes in the gym, watches the tape, tries to get better at his weaknesses every single day. How in the world did we replace that guy with his polar opposite, who we wished he could have been? It's just, I'm serious, you couldn't write it any better. And then for the first preseason game for Maxey to come out and score like that with the other guy still refusing to shoot the ball on the same court, it was unbelievable. I couldn't write it any better than that.
You know what's insane, man? In addition to that, like, think about all the things that happened in line for us to get Tyrese Maxey. There was a pandemic, which made him fall down to the 20s in the draft. Markelle Fultz forgot how to shoot a jump shot a month before the season. That guy stopped showing up to games and practices. I mean, we could go down the list for years. Like, if Markelle Fultz panned out even somewhat, we would never even be talking about Tyrese Maxey. If they had a normal season and he didn't play 5 college games and go to the draft and we didn't have any pre-draft footage, he might have gone 10th overall.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think how we got this guy and how he, emerged himself into the lineup.
Look, it's like something about life in general. I don't want to get philosophical on people, but when a lot of bad things happen in a row, you just keep reminding yourself, I don't know why, but something good has got to happen soon. Yeah. I've been in plenty of times in my life where I'm like, nothing is working. Everything's going wrong. And then eventually, like, something happens. And I'm like, damn, it's like I was in the dark to get here. It's like the same thing with this basketball team for some reason. We had so many years where this player, that player, torn ACL, broken foot, out for a season, bad first-round draft pick, player who looks like we finally got the player we want that I think wrecked a motorcycle and ruined his shoulder and couldn't shoot the ball anymore. So many bad things, and it was like, this is the product of that. Tyrese Maxey is the product of all of that negativity for all those years. So.
And shout out to the chat. How could I forget to throw that in there? If Mike Muscala in the NBA bubble did not hit that shot to win the game, we're not talking about Tyrese Maxey. It's crazy, and a former Sixer too.
I love real hardcore Sixers fans, because only real hardcore Sixers fans understand that reference at all. When people say thank you, Mike Muscala, and stuff like that, it's just great. And yeah, only real ones know what that means.
Exactly. Mike Muscala is a Sixers legend.
For that reason. All right. So do you have any predictions or things to look forward to when it comes to the opening game against the Celtics? Because I haven't really dove into it yet. I didn't watch the Celtics in the preseason. I guess I don't really want to try to analyze a team from the preseason. All I was looking at in the preseason was, does James Harden look like he's in shape? Is Tyrese Maxey looking like the scorer that I knew he was last year, but now he has the confidence? I don't know. What do you think about the Celtics game at opening night? And do you have maybe a prediction?
So I might be going above and beyond here. I actually think we're going to stomp the Celtics on the road, and I think it's going to be courtesy of Tyrese Maxie, believe it or not. I think Maxie, because I still think these teams are now believing in Maxie, but they haven't seen it yet. You know, they haven't seen it for a consistent stretch where they're like, oh my gosh, we need a game plan for him first. And when I think about the Celtics, I agree with you. The preseason means nothing. It is nice to go 4-0 for once, but here's what I know about the Boston Celtics. Their coach is in wherever, you know, they're struggling. Like they have a new coach within a couple weeks, and the guy's like 30, 32, 34 years old, and he hasn't really had time to really mesh with the team. And then I also know that Robert Williams, their center, is out. So what are the Celtics going to do? In my opinion, they're going to try to harass Joel Embiid, because if they don't, Joel's going to go for 50.
Yeah.
I think that's going to open up Tyrese Maxie. So my bold take, I think the Sixers win by 18 on opening night, and I think Maxie has like one of those 31, 28-point games, and I think he puts himself on the map. Though that's just my preliminary thoughts on the game. But I think we go into Boston, the defending, Eastern Conference representative in the finals. And I think the Sixers, who have the Celtics and then the Bucks, by the way, I think the Sixers come out and make a statement right from the jump.
If we stomp the Celtics and Maxey does what he did in the preseason and drops, like on the pace that he was scoring at in some of those preseason games, he would drop 40 in a full, 35 minutes. If that actually happens, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be completely unbearable. It's going to be, it's just going to, I'll have to talk myself down before I do a post-game live show so I can actually talk instead of screaming the whole time. I hope that's what happens. The last thing is that I have is that I don't think people are talking about Joel Embiid enough. I think everybody slept on Joel Embiid all summer because Embiid didn't come out of his house, or he claims he didn't come out of his house. But just the last preseason game, I think Joel Embiid is in I say this every season, but I really think Joel Embiid looks like he's in the best shape of his entire career right now. He looks very good. He looks like he has endurance. He looks like he has just bounce to his step. He just looks very limber. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. He looks very slim and athletic compared to, I guess, what I'm used to seeing. And I feel like we say that every year, but I really think that. And he came out in that preseason game and just nailing jump shots left and right. And I think Joel Embiid also is a player that's going to come out here. And he was MVP runner-up last season, but he knows I can get better every year if I just keep working on this, or this. He might actually be better than he was last season, which was a straight-up legendary season statistically for an NBA center. And so, listen, I mean, this team could be so good if all of these things, actually happen.
Yeah, this is the year. We think about Joel, how the heck has he gotten better the last 2 seasons? Look at what he's done. How can this guy get any better? He finds a way to do it. And the one thing I've taken away from Joel is that's different from prior years. He's not talking much at all. He came out and he said, I didn't work on anything this season. You're just going to have to wait and see. I feel like he's really taken this personal vengeance tour where he's like, you know what? You don't want to vote me MVP? Fine. You don't want to vote me Defensive Player of the Year? Fine. I'm just ready to come out here and win. I think he actually, for once, has put all that to the side. And he's like, all right, this is my best shot. I have a guard who once, was an MVP, who's a 10-time All-Star. I have an emerging young star. I have a guy like PJ Tucker, who I literally called for our GM to go get. I have the squad. We didn't have this before. I think we've been confident going into other seasons, but we never sat up here and said, come playoff time, are we really going to be ready to go with a guy that doesn't shoot a basketball or this guy that has this? Nah, Joel's out here saying, all right, this is the squad. This is the chance. And I think he's put everything else to the side, and I agree with you. I think he's going to get better. I think he's going to be locked in. I think he's put everything else out of the way, and he's ready to absolutely dominate. It might not look like that statistically, given all of these other guys.
Right.
Now, he's going to average 27 a game. He might dip a little bit from last year, but the efficiency, he's going to be unstoppable. He's going to add some type of dribble move or, just something to just wow us.
Yeah.
But the most important thing, can he stay healthy? Can he stay healthy? That's what our season hinges on. So I hope he does.
Yeah, it does. And but I think we're due for one, and it's because like technically he's not injury prone as far as like, I guess he had the broken foot and then refractured it while he was like rehabbing when he was a rookie and then missed his second season. He never had an issue with that foot again. Then he had the meniscus. What did he have? A meniscus tear then, and missed the rest of his first season. And then he had a partially torn meniscus in his other knee 2 years ago.
Right.
I guess that counts as injury prone, but I'm just trying to say like it's not there's not recurring injuries. And then he gets, Markelle Fultz elbowed or shouldered him in the face 1 year, and then he gets elbowed in the face last year. A lot of them are just like random, like dumb accident kind of injuries. Like, everybody has that family member that always like somehow wrecked a bike, broke his arm, did something. How are you always hurt? So I guess that is injury prone, but I don't think there's any recurring injuries that we should be worried about. It's just really like, can we avoid the weird, like freak accident type of things? And I think this is the year for that to happen.
I think the last 2 years, he's prioritized his health so much. Like he's done everything. He's hired a nutritionist. He's, been in the gym more, like all this stuff. I feel so bad about last season. That was not his fault whatsoever. He shouldn't have been in the game. 4 minutes left in the series. We're up 50 million points. It's just a freak accident.
I remember thinking it. I remember thinking it in my head. Like, take Joel out. We're up by 30. I remember thinking it right before it happened. It was that crazy.
It's awful. And to have that severe of an injury. And by the way, I mean, people still don't give him the credit for coming back in that Miami series. We lost the first 2 games because he wasn't there. If he was in that series the whole way through and he was healthy, we definitely beat that Miami team. But there's been things like that the last couple of years. That injury, Ben Simmons folding like a tent in the Hawks series. Like go back even more. Like we have had so many opportunities. Now I think Joel is like, just get me to the finish line and I will do my thing. And He's got to stay healthy. Him and James have to stay healthy. That's really what this whole season hinges on. The talent's there. Doc Rivers is going to be Doc Rivers. But we've been how close to the third round, man. We got to get there. Yeah. We got to get there. And if we don't, big changes are to come.
It's going to happen this year. My biggest fear is that we make the Eastern Conference Finals. Something happens with the matchups and Doc Rivers riding a player that he shouldn't be riding for too long or something like that. We get to the Eastern Conference Finals, Doc Rivers kills us, and then there's enough of an argument for him to continue to be the coach because he got to the Eastern Conference Finals. That's just me being ultra negative if I had to really say what I think is going to happen. But I think this team definitely has the best chance to win an NBA championship that I've ever seen in my lifetime right now, which is insanely exciting.
So if we get to the Eastern Conference Finals, say we lose 4-1, what is your thoughts right then and there?
If it's clearly like, yo, Doc, you played Montrez against so-and-so for 17 minutes straight in the third quarter, if it's clearly just coaching decisions that got you there, I think Daryl Morey's a smart enough basketball guy that he's not going to be blinded by anything. And they're like in a perfect world, we got there, we're good enough to win. Doc killed us. They fired Doc. Then we promote, Sam Cassell, and then we go on to the promised land and we win 3 of the next 5 championships.
Hey, I'm ready for it. By the way, the Sixers, after the first 2 games, which everybody's going to talk about, they have a fairly easy schedule. Like we could honestly start off like 11-3 if you look at the schedule. Like I know we got the Pacers, we got the Raptors a couple times, we have the Wizards, the Knicks, like all these teams we should be able to beat. We could start out very hot, but if we go like 5-6, everybody might lose their mind. But that's Philadelphia, so.
Yeah, Superhero makes a good point too, and I think you said it just a couple minutes ago. Joel averaged over 33 a game when Harden came over. So Joel was averaging 30 a game. That was before James Harden. That was with basically, just young Tyrese Maxie trying to step into a role of like, oh, shit, now I got to be like a number 2 option on this team.
Yeah.
So that was without really much perimeter help at all. Joel Embiid averaged 30 points a game. So these Tyrese making that step, James Harden here and in shape and getting his shot back and being an efficient perimeter player. Like, if the floor opens up more for a guy that just averaged 30, this could be, the league should fear Tyrese Maxey and James Harden helping Joel Embiid be more dominant than he was in one of the most dominant center seasons ever. Yeah.
Right. And then you have a guy like PJ Tucker, who's just going to make a world of difference, especially on the defensive side. You know, it's not Danny Green running down the floor and not being able to stay up with anybody, you know, getting hot at the second part of the season. No, like, I expect PJ Tucker to be a dog every single night. There's going to be guys that might come in. Tucker's going to clamp them up. And I think that's going to help us as well. So I just think it's the perfect fit for some of these guys. Like, this is the squad. If they were to come out and look soft in a big game, there's nobody else to point to other than maybe one or two guys like at the top. Like, I don't know. You have everything now ready to push it, you know, so they got to get it done.
Outside of James, Joel, and Maxey, who's your favorite player on this team?
In the starting lineup or in general?
Just in general, your favorite player. Doesn't even have to be the best player, just your favorite player.
Well, I think it's going to be Tucker. Very, very short-lived, you know, like into the season. I think it's got to be Tucker. Like, I just see certain nights where Sixers fans are going to lose their mind over PJ. He's going to go 0 for 7 from 3. But what they won't see, what the people that don't watch every game won't see, is him fighting for rebounds. You know, he had 3 offensive rebounds in a row, or scrapping against some of these, you know, guys, or maybe Tucker gets into it with somebody and the Wells Fargo's going nuts. I think Tucker's going to be that guy, or maybe Trez.
Yeah, Montrezl Harrell is my favorite player on this team. The guy's a maniac. I just love that guy. The guy's an absolute maniac. I love what he said in the introductory press conference. You know, they said something to him about what did you do this offseason to work on your game, and how do you think something moving forward? And he was like, what are you talking about? I never took a vacation in my life. He's like, I just play ball. Like, that's all he knows. And I think you can tell, I don't want to assume, because I never really researched into his upbringing or anything like that, but I can just tell at some point in his life, he needed basketball. Yeah. I can tell that from him. And now he just refuses to take it for granted. Every single second, every single minute he's able to play the game, he loves every second of it. He doesn't care if it's a preseason game, a YMCA pickup game. He just does not care. He's going hard every single time he's on the floor. I just relate to somebody like that so much.
And the crazy thing about Trez is that, I'll tell you right now, he's not a minimum player. We got an above minimum player on a minimum contract. And those are the types of things that happen to good teams. Like, those things just fall into play. And I agree with you. Like, just the way he approaches the game. In fact, you want another bold take? I think he might be the best backup big that Joel's ever had. That's right. When you look at Dwight Howard, you know, it was tough, right? We love the character of Dwight. Drummond was very productive, and he was one of the best bigs Joel's ever had to back up. But I think Trez's production, I think people are sleeping on him. They have this image printed in their minds from the Clipper days. Well, guess what? This ain't the Clippers. This is the 2022 Sixers. This is a damn good team. Trez is backing up Joel Embiid. Okay, he's not backing up Ivica Zubac or whatever his name is. All right, Zubac, my fault. He's not backing up Zubac. He's backing up Joel Embiid for 10 minutes a game. All he's got to do is come in and be productive for 10 minutes a night. I think he might be the best big backup that Joel's ever had.
And for it to be Philadelphia, this guy, man, he probably loved a couple of places that he played in the NBA. Philly's going to love him, and he's going to love Philly back so much. It's such a perfect fit. I love that guy. The photos of him already in his Sixers uniform, just staring at the crowd, screaming. It's so Philly, man. He belongs here. Trez
hits a game winner and starts screaming up to the screaming up to the city, man. I love it.
End of a preseason game, man. It's great. And I heard Al Abdenabi last night say, you know, we got to remind ourselves these games don't matter. And Trez was on the floor at the time, and I was like, yeah, tell it to that guy, because every game matters to him. Trez would dunk on a 6-year-old on a little tyke soup. Trez was that guy that, like, you know, at the park, the the girls' basketball team would come down and run with the guys, and he was blocking a shot into Main Street and like screaming.
Yo,
Yeah,
he's hungry, man.
guy, man.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care who you are. That's what I love. They asked him about the beef with Joel. He said, we haven't talked about it, but he was like, I'll do that every single time. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, enemy, friend, whatever. Like, I'm going out there. I'm playing the game, man. That's what I like to see.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yo, hey, thanks for coming through. Good to catch up with you, man. I'm excited for this season. I know you are too. Keep killing it. Keep killing it on your end of the Sixers YouTube spectrum. I'll keep doing my best over here on my end, and we'll keep grinding. We'll try to do this a bunch during the season, man.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you having me on. Shout out to the chat. Staying strong, even through the technical difficulties, man.
They want
weathering the storm.
They want Sixers content as bad as we want to give Sixers content, man. We're all here, man. We're all just crazy maniac Sixers fans. The cool part is that when I look at the numbers and I see 200 people in a live stream like this right now, it's baseball playoffs. It's Dallas week. It's Eagles Cowboys Sunday night. Like, the majority of mainstream Philadelphia sports fans do not give a shit what we're saying right now. They don't want to hear anything about the Philadelphia 76ers. So for 200 people to be crazy enough to be sitting here listening to this, that just shows, man, the Sixers have some serious hardcore fans. We're here for it.
And it's a testament to what you're doing, man. Like, we've been working together for a long time, but just the people like continuing to tune in, like, it's definitely a process. It's a whole grind behind the scenes, and I mean, sometimes, like, I was just thinking about this the other day. I'm like, wow, this is like the third full season that I'm actually doing this. Like, at some point you think like, all right, well, how do I upscale, or what happens now? But the people continue to come through and continue to support, continues to grow, which is, the best part. Like, I think both of our goals is just to make the best Sixers environment possible. Because nobody talks like every time they talk about us on the main stage, it's always clowning us or about the process or what we didn't do, But in reality, there's a bunch of great Sixers fans floating out around there who need someone to talk about it with. So I love it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yo, we'll catch up, man. Thanks for coming through. Thanks for everyone in the chat, man. Hit the like button on your way out. Again, it's a grind. I got to figure out what the hell's wrong with my camera now. So it's always something, but we're here. We're here, man. We're here for you.
Man.